The Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve is the southernmost marine reserve here in Oregon. It is just south of the town of Port Orford. It's also one of the oldest marine reserves in Oregon. The Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve is particularly special to the local community because it was proposed by the local fishing community, which makes up most of Port Orford, when they started to see that their fishing stocks were declining and they wanted to do something about it. Currently, there is a lot of research being done in the reserve. ODFW, which is the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, is still completing hook and line, scuba, ROV, and video lander surveys, and those have been going on since 2010. Juvenile fish recruitment is when all of the baby fishes that will inhabit the temperate reef ecosystems here in Oregon move from their pelagic state, which means that they're swimming around in the open ocean kind of at the surface, just hanging out in their schools. And then as they mature, they move into the benthic stage of their life, which means that they settle into the ground habitats of the ocean, which means that they just kind of stay at the bottom in these rocky habitats and hang out, whether that be in near shore kelp forests or if that's in the intertidal area in tide pools and those kinds of things. Juvenile fish recruitment is important for a multitude of reasons. Here in the Marine Reserve, it is a way to measure overall ecosystem health, which is important to just see how well the Marine Reserve is working and what its overall effectiveness is at maintaining and protecting these kelp forest and rocky habitats. But it is also a way to keep track of future stocks, which is important for all of the local fishing communities along the Oregon coast, because if we see through the juvenile fish recruitment surveys that we're not seeing a lot of fish recruitment in general, that's a way to predict how the future fishing stocks will look. So to measure juvenile fish recruitment, we use something called a SMRF, which is a standardized monitoring unit for the recruitment of fishes. And basically what it is it's this massive ball of net that is contained in some green garden fencing. And it's hooked on this line, which is attached to a mooring. And here in the Redfish Rocks Marine Reserve, we have 4 of these moorings that are located in the reserve itself, and we have also 4 that are located just south of Humbug Mountain, which serves as the comparison area. And basically with how the moorings are set up, these big groups of nets, so the SMRFs, sit usually around 3 feet below the surface. Sometimes they can be closer to 6, depending on if there's a strong current. And what they do is they simulate a kelp forest canopy. So when these juvenile fishes are swimming in from the open ocean and they're looking for a little place to hide and just to grow up, they see the SMRFs and they're like, oh my God, this looks like such a good area. And then they hang out there. And every 2 weeks, what we do is we go out on a boat, and we have a free diving team that consists of 2 people. And what they do is once we get to each mooring, they get off of the boat and they are given a replacement SMRF that we will hook to the mooring. And then they're also given this thing called a binky net, which is basically this just big, massive mesh net. And what we do when we are doing the collection is one person will be carrying the net and they'll swim over to the SMRF mooring using a snorkel. And what they'll do is they will free dive down and open up the net right before they reach the SMRF. And basically, you just get to act like a whale and you scoop up all of the fishes and the whole entire SMRF with the net, and you close it and then you take it off of the mooring. The second person will replace it with the new SMRF, and then we swim back to the boat. And on the boat, the fishes get taken out of the net. They get collected, we put them into little baggies, and then what we'll do is we'll put them on ice and we'll take them back to the lab. And at the end of the day, when we're back at the lab, what we do is we size them, and we also identify them down to their species complex. And that's because for things like cabezon, we can identify them down to just being a cabezon. But for rockfish, they're really hard to identify down to the species specifically when they're this young. So what we have some that are identified down to the species, but we have mostly what we call species complexes. So for example, this year we've been getting a lot of the OYTB complex, which that is going to signify an olive, a yellowtail, or a black rockfish.